Hi, I'm Scott Duxbury and welcome to another episode of Diamonds in the Rough. Today we're speaking with Scott Fine, CEO of Cyclo Therapeutics, a clinical stage biotechnology company that develops products for the treatment of Niemann-Pick disease type C, or NPC, and also Alzheimer's disease. Enjoy the interview. Scott, thank you for talking with us today.
It's a pleasure, Dux.
Tell us about yourself and Cyclo Therapeutics.
Sure. So I spent 40 years on Wall Street, give or take a few years, in healthcare and consumer products around the world, working from generics to biosimilars to genetics, etc. I left Wall Street in 2014 to stand up my own family office, and the first asset we looked at was a company called CTD Holdings at the time, which was a specialty chemical company. And what was unique about this specialty chemical company was that they were selling a type of cyclodextrin, which a cyclodextrin is frankly a very simple sugar molecule. It's used in many, many different areas in pharmaceuticals as well as other commercial industries. But they were selling one specific type of beta cyclodextrin through compassionate use INDs for the treatment of a rare disease, Niemann-Pick type C, which is a disease where the body cannot process cholesterol. And they had been selling it for many, many years. And what we observed, my partner and I, Marcus Seeger, who we'll talk about in a moment, was that while they had been selling this compound through these compassionate use INDs with the FDA and with Anvisa in Brazil specifically, and exclusively to the country of Brazil, they did not have any data around what was happening with this drug at all. And that became our opportunity. They were a small public company. They were doing about $1 million in revenues. They were profitable. So we took a decision, Marcus and I, Marcus Seeger, who, by the way, is our chairman. Marcus is the CEO of a company based in Warsaw, Poland, Pol Pharma, which is a large biosimilar and pharmaceutical generics company. And Marcus and I made an initial investment to, frankly, greenfield a team led by Dr. Sharon Renko, who was our CSO, Chief Scientific Officer. She was not with the company at the time, but Sharon and a team got on airplanes and they went and visited these patients, these families, and they harvested this data that was put in a dossier, and it was determined that this data would be utilized for us to stand up what became our phase 1 clinical trial in the United States, which we just completed, and we'll talk about in a moment, as well as our phase 1/2 clinical trial in Europe, which we've had an interim readout on data, which has been extremely positive. Again, we'll talk about that in a moment, but that will complete in February. So that's frankly the footprint as to how we got involved with the company. And started building out the platform, building out the board, building out the management team, and transforming this little company from a specialty chemical company to a phase 3 ready asset pharmaceutical development biotechnology company, which is what it is now.
Great. So, but also, can you tell us about Trappsol Cyclo and how it became the focal point for drug development at Cyclo Therapeutics?
Sure. Jeff Tate, our COO, actually formulated the compound as they began to use the compound for the treatment of Niemann-Pick type C. And it's a trade secret formulation of a beta cyclodextrin, which is a simple sugar molecule. It looks like a donut. And however, when it's given to an individual who's suffering from Niemann-Pick type C intravenously, it literally will go into the cell and take the cholesterol out of the cells where the cholesterol is stuck in this disease, and we'll put it into the system, and it's then excreted out in the feces of the person.
Tell us more about the lead indication for NPC and the challenges of developing a drug for rare disease.
So, Dux, you know, the patient population is about 1 in 100,000 live births. We estimate there's 3,000 people in the mature world, and we say that because this doesn't include areas like China or Indonesia and other parts of the world. And this disease knows no boundaries, if you will. But the mature market, it's about 3,000 people. We think the addressable monetary number is about $500 million. So it actually is a very large market for us to go after, especially with 90% gross margins that we could obtain for this disease, if you will.
Scott, where are you in your program, and is there any data that you can share?
Sure, Doc. So from a clinical standpoint, we reported out on our top line data for our phase 1, which was a short trial. What we showed there was an extreme safety profile of our drug, and we showed great PK analysis. In fact, it's important that we showed, because there were liver biopsies taking of these patients, that was mandatory to be in the trial. And we showed that we were clearing cholesterol from our cells in the liver biopsies. Our phase 1/2 data from Europe, which is a 48-week trial, the patients that completed that showed 86% efficacy in the compound itself, which of course across such a small patient population, that type of ratio is extremely positive. So we're quite excited about it. So it's phenomenal. The data is phenomenal. You know, I want to sidebar very quickly. Dr. Caroline Hastings, who was the first physician to stand up a compassionate use program in the United States for the Hempel twins, she and Dr. Renko, our chief scientific officer, co-authored a paper on the compassionate use program and the use of our drug compassionately. And that's been for over 10 years now. And it was published in Orphanet in November of 19. And that paper is very reflective of the data we're seeing out of our clinical trials. We're frankly mimicking what we saw in the compassionate program, the safety profile of the drug and the efficacy of the drug, through the process that we're going through with the regulators in the FDA and with EMA. It's very compelling.
Well, congratulations on that. That's a very great achievement. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So what separates?
Great, by the way, great for the patients, Dux.
Oh, 100%.
And the families.
Yeah. And so what separates you from the competition then?
That's a great question. So our drug, again, given intravenously, treats the entire body. And it's very unique in that this is a large molecule. It's called 1400 Daltons. Most people are aware that any drug over 400 Daltons will not go through the blood-brain barrier. Somehow our drug is getting into the brain. We don't know how, but we know it is, because part of our protocol required that patients do a lumbar puncture and take a draw of CSF. So we can see that our drug is getting into the brain, and we have seen the benefits of this anecdotally first in our compassionate programs with gait improvement, speech improvement, swallowing improvement, all functionalities of the brain. So what separates us from our competition, and right now there's only one compound in the marketplace approved. It's called miglustat. It's only approved in Europe. It only serves the neurological effects, manifestations of this disease. We go after the systemic and the neurological. We treat the entire body, which is very, very important as we bring this to be what we think will be standard of care for the treatment of Niemann-Pick type C patients around the world.
And also, let's touch on another part here. How did you get involved in Alzheimer's disease?
Great question. It's a very unique story. Maybe not unique, but I think it's unique. We got a phone call from a very large family office, and this family had identified a doctor, Dr. Diana Kerwin, who's a leading neurodegenerative scientist and physician in the United States, and they had wanted to talk to us about standing up a single patient compassionate use program for a late onset geriatric Alzheimer's patient. And Diana would be the physician or the PI, the principal investigator. They wanted to use our compound. And they did this, Dux, off the back of a study that was done by a Dr. Flint Beal, who at the time was the head of neurology at Cornell Weill in New York City. And Dr. Beal had given beta-cyclodextrin, our drug, to a mouse model of Alzheimer's-induced mice subcutaneously. And the outcome of that, and he published on this, so this publication is out there for anyone to read, the outcome of that was the mice that were given the cyclodextrin in this maze were able to find the platform or get out of the water, if you will, whereas the mice that were induced with Alzheimer's and were not given the drug suffered terribly and could not function at all. Off the back of that paper, we went to FDA and we got permission from FDA to stand up a single patient compassionate use program utilizing our drug through an IV administration for the treatment of Alzheimer's. And the outcome was incredible. So I'll continue the story. So 6 months into the data, if you will, as we began to look at it in this patient, we went to our intellectual property counsel and we filed a provisional patent for the utilization of our drug, Trappsol Cyclo, for the treatment of Alzheimer's. We then and many people aren't aware of this, when you stand up a compassionate use program, IND with the FDA, you have to, at the end of 12 months, file an annual report. And in that annual report, you have to, show serious adverse events. You have to show what the effectiveness has been. You have to effectively show the FDA the clinical data. And especially with Alzheimer's, you also have to give the anecdotal observational data, whereas was the behavioral better, was walking better, word memory better. And all of these things were extremely positive. The most positive thing that we saw, Dux, is for 12 months, we saw no disease progression at all in this patient, which is unheard of for a patient. Now, it's an N of 1. It's only one patient, but it's a very important factor. So we went to FDA, and the request to FDA was, and you have to request something, was we'd like to continue on with the trial, and FDA gave us the green light to continue to dose this patient. The patient stayed on the drug for 18 months. And they voluntarily took themselves off. We really don't know why. We think perhaps the individual got tired of getting the infusions, or we don't know. But what we do know is we now had 18 months of data, 18 months, showing that there was no disease progression in a late onset geriatric Alzheimer's patient. That's unheard of. I don't think there's another company on the planet can claim that they have that kind of data at this point in time. So I'll move to your next question. What are you going to do with it? So we have already drafted a synopsis and a protocol. We've already been in touch with FDA, and we are planning on going to FDA early in the first half of 2021 with an intent that we'd like to seek their permission to stand up a phase 2 clinical trial in Alzheimer's. And we refer to this as a company as an asset. Because to be very clear, what we will do if FDA grants us this, and I'll take a step back. Why do we think that FDA will agree with us that it's potentially a phase 2 asset? Well, we have 10 years of safety data. So we don't think they're going to challenge us around the safety of Trappsol Cyclo because of our use in Niemann-Pick type C, not only through the compassionate program, but now through our clinical programs. So we've shown the drug is safe. So we would anticipate that, allowing us to go to a phase 2 dosing trial would be the most efficacious and most beneficial way for us to move forward our program, again, for the benefit of a very large patient population in Alzheimer's. So we're quite excited about it. And to be very clear, once we do get a standing from FDA, it's our intent to look at the asset, and most likely we'll look for a partner to help us build out that asset and mature it as we take it into a phase 2 clinical trial. But we're very excited about it because the data is very compelling. And my last comment, it's kind of unique, is we went to Dr. Beal after we got this human data from this one patient. He signed an NDA and he looked at the data, and literally the next day he joined our scientific advisory board.
Wow.
Which was quite exciting because, he, of course, is very interested and was extremely compelled by our data. And we most likely will look at Cornell Weill as a clinical trial site at the time when and if we stand up this trial for Alzheimer's. But it's very exciting.
Exciting and very promising. Another point in there. So what are some of the upcoming milestones for Cyclo Therapeutics then?
So look, we're going to finish our phase 2 trial, phase 1/2 trial in Europe. We'll have our first patient in our clinical trial, most likely in the United States, in the first half of, or first quarter, frankly, we believe, of 2021. We will receive EMA approval for the pivotal. We've already had feedback from them, very positive feedback. We're block and tackling with them now because, as I said earlier in this discussion, FDA has already given us the green light that the study may proceed and we can begin enrolling patients. We're anticipating getting that same green light from EMA. So we'll be announcing that. And as I said, we're also going to be, meeting with FDA on the Alzheimer's program, and we anticipate very positive news coming out of that as well. So we've got a really impactful next 30, 60, 90, 120 days where we believe that we're going to hit some key milestones for our company.
Well, it sounds like you've got a very big 2021 ahead of you. We
think that's right. And I should sidebar, we just completed a raise. We've just raised some money, so our balance sheet is very strong at this point in time. And we also just uplisted to NASDAQ, which is very good for visibility for our company.
Well, congratulations for all that, Scott. It's all sounds very promising.
Thanks, Dux.
For everyone watching, thank you for watching. And if you want to contact Scott, his email is there, which you can see. And there's some special presentations on this link as well. Thanks very much. Want to learn more about Cyclo Therapeutics? Click on the link to their website here, or you can download the presentation that was on this video as well in PDF form.